Thank you to the Three Principles Global community for offering these conversations. These webinars are intended to support community conversations on the quotes of Sydney Banks. If you're not familiar with the Three Principles Global community, it is a nonprofit organization committed to disseminating the understanding of the three principles as discovered by Sydney Banks. The three principles point toward the true source of human experience. Insightful realization of the three principles allows anyone to understand how all human experience is created and to glimpse into the very nature of that creative source. These insights uncover our natural resilience, innate feelings of well-being, and our natural connection and access to a universal wisdom found within everyone. The website is 3pgc.org. So this quote, as I said, is from The Enlightened Gardener Revisited, page 24. Waste not your time in the paths of yesterday's negative memories, for they are but illusions in time, controlling how you perceive life now. I'll read that again. Waste not your time in the paths of yesterday's negative memories, for they are but illusions in time, controlling how you perceive life now. We'll just take a couple of minutes and reflect on that. And if it'd be helpful for me to read it again, I'm happy to do that too.
Okay, so I had a situation. I met with a colleague of mine for coffee, and he was keen to introduce me to a woman. We're going to meet at this meeting together on Friday this week, and I've met her before and had, little, I would just call it awkward. I wouldn't even call it awkward. What would I call it? Anyway, had something on it, and it was a good reminder that that's in the, whatever that encounter was previously, or whatever she did or didn't do, I don't even remember, that's no longer part of the equation. And so it really behooves me on Friday just to show up and be completely fresh and open and see who she is. So this is a good topic, because that's it was top of mind, when I had this conversation with my colleague.
Great example.
When I heard of that quote, I just thought of like how much I've learned from Sid, that I'm like the creator of my thinking. I create my own reality. And I used to just be so negative about what happened the day before or a year ago or months ago. But I started to sit back and notice when I learned the three principles that I was creating those emotions for myself, because I was, caught up, is how I like to say it.
Absolutely. And that part about caught up in what?
Nothing. I would be so caught up, and just I've listened to everything of Sid, and it's just so mind blowing and beautiful. And now I get caught up, and I'm kind of grateful for it, because I get these love letters and symptoms to just take a step back. We're not going to live in the past. We're not going to think about something that's not important, and give myself those feelings.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Especially the connection about, I'm not going to give myself those feelings. That's a great quote right there. Anybody could wear that on a t-shirt. I'm not going to give myself those feelings.
I would love to do that.
It'd be great. It's like when people can really start to see there's no exceptions. I'm not going to give myself those feelings. I love that. No exceptions. Nobody else is doing it.
No exceptions.
All the pointing in the world, and nobody else is doing it. all the people sitting around that turkey, for those of us in the US, all the ones that are going to be sitting around a big table having a meal, it's like nobody's doing that.
No, we're not getting caught up today.
Yes.
Yeah, I have two examples. One is for my son, because he had an incident at school with the teacher. There was a misunderstanding. And I said, oh, that's okay. Just speak to your teacher about it tomorrow. But everyone in year 5 says they had my teacher last year and she's so strict. And even auntie, because my cousin is a teacher at the school, she also said my teacher is so strict, so I don't want to talk to her about it. And I said, but what is your experience with the teacher? Not just what everyone else says. And then I said, has she been strict too? Yeah, sometimes. But has she also been nice to you and you are able to talk to her? Yes, mommy. And I said, so tomorrow, just talk to her, be polite, be respectful, and you should be fine. And he did that. And then he came home very proud and said, yeah, basically the outcome was good. And he was happy that he spoke to her. So that's just one little example for my son. And then another one for me, like you said before, it's so much easier with strangers than with your loved ones. And then I did not grow up around my biological family, and I had always very before the principles, not good feelings towards them. And then obviously through the understanding, I don't understand it all, through the understanding, I have now a completely different outlook. And it has really, really changed my relationship, especially with my father. And that doesn't mean that there was not wrong or anything, but just meeting people where they are and having that understanding that they don't, maybe we all have the principles, but we not all apply them because we are innocently not aware of that. Maybe we have thought about certain situation in a different way, and that's why we're acting like this. So it just helps me to really, with my family, it has really restored relationships. And for the next generation now, for my children to actually have a relationship with the family because of this understanding that I have now through the 3 principles. I don't know if that makes any sense, because you understand it's the past. And yes, I'm thinking about it, but how I'm thinking about it now can really change the present. So, yeah.
Oh, I think that's so beautiful, because for generations, how it shifts to a very present, a present relationship. And that's oh my gosh, that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. And I love too what you said about the principles, in that if only in our own day we can see the principles in action within myself. If I can just see the principles in action within myself, I would never need to go to a movie. You know what I mean? I see it playing out inside me all day. You know? So just within ourselves, and how you offered that to your son as a solution, I mean, as a place to look, as a direction to look, which is what we're all doing, is looking or pointing in a direction, but to look in that direction is a game changer. Things can't stay the same. They just can't. No, I love all these examples because they're so real. They're not lofty concepts, they're real, where the rubber meets the road, and how we can, if I can see the principles in action and what I'm seeing, it comes back to me, it comes back to me, it comes back to me. Thank you so much. And was that his little feet in the screen?
No, that's my youngest one. She's 2.
Oh, okay. Oh, great.
Next to me, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to know, I appreciate her contribution. I love seeing her little feet come up on the screen.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, a couple things came to mind for me. One of them is I have a friend, actually a couple friends that I meet for breakfast every Sunday morning. And so before the principles, it was, here he goes again. I mean, now that I have some understanding about how the mind works, it's always happening. It doesn't stop. It just keeps going. But I just have the capacity to see him in a new and fresh way. And this past Sunday, he's an older guy, and he's having a lot of aches and pains. So I'm seeing the change. So right before my very eyes, I'm saying it's not always the way it always is. There's change happening. Sometimes it's just hard to see. And I've worked on this prior to the principles, with just trying to accept him, let it go, just let him be himself. And but with the knowledge of the principles, and it's like this is just the way the mind works, and I can notice it. Sometimes I get caught up in it, and I'll get in it, but most of the time, more often than not, now I can just see that he's just innocently being himself, doing what he's learned how to do, and it's I don't take it so personally as I used to take it before. So that's yeah, that's one example. The other example is I have two sons, and they're older people. They're in their 50s now, and one's politically conservative leaning, and the other one is liberal leaning. And that's just one example. I think you could take almost anything and you can see them taking opposite sides of things, and how I get caught up in it and try to be the referee, and tried all sorts of strategies when they were kids growing up. And it's only been like within the last 6 months or so that I don't get caught up in their stories. And I just find a way to lighten the conversation and not give it much attention. And now I have grandchildren. The grandchildren get caught up in it. And so it's just been refreshing to see it for what it is, take it in stride, let it go, not get, if I get caught up in it, just recognize that I'm doing it. And it seems to have just lightened up the relationships all around.
Wow.
You know, without actually addressing it head on, the way I used to. Like I gotta, you know, get them to see the light, or and they get into stuff with their mother. I'm divorced, so I hear about the stuff they get into with their mother when they're upset at their mother. And it's just with this understanding, I just don't get caught up in it in the way that I used to. And and probably if I look at the way I used to handle things, it's like it looks like I'm not being effective. But yet they're not squabbling as much. They're not squabbling. It's just, it's a miracle.
Isn't that the truth, that it's a miracle? I mean, that I love that. That's a prime example of living among separate realities. I mean, there's no blurred lines there. You know, each of your son has a very fixed reality that they see the world from without the blurred lines. And but you don't need to fix it. There's nothing out of order. You know, I mean, there's no role you need to play. You know, they can have their separate realities. What a load off your back, I would think.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's excellent. Yeah. To me, it's politics and separate realities. It's like the best teachers. Like, no, doesn't matter what the content is. Everybody's got their own reality in that.
It was rather synchronous when you mentioned the reading that you shared on a daily thing that comes through my schedule. This is Daily Dharma for today. And the title is How to Tell the Future. If you want to know your past, look at your present circumstances. If you want to know your future, look at what is in your mind. And, you know, separate realities was really brought to home down in Coral Gables in the 80s. And, you know, it was like, wow, that was really powerful. And so to keep it in the present and not give weight to anybody's reality, but pure potential, the present, I try to use the words perhaps or maybe, and not to get into words like, well, absolutely or for sure. So giving them space to exist in their reality. I don't need to weigh it. I don't need to approve it. I don't need to check the box or make a judgment. I just need to listen and stay present and stay open. So the choice of words when you kind of know that someone's baiting you or hooking you or, you know, wanting to pull you in their direction, you know, just stay where you are and allow them their space. Thank you.
I love that phrase too of just to be able to surf up on the top of the water, you know, where everybody is. It's like, I love just being able to look at somebody and say, you could be right. I didn't say they were right per my reality, but I do love that line about you could be right, you know. In their world they are. So keep on moving. I'm like, you could be right. Who knows what's right? There's no right and wrong, good and bad, you know, big picture. So it's like, keep on moving. It must be up. It must be up for November, because that's what we said. This quote occurred to me because of the holidays and so much social interaction for so many for the as we welcome in the new year, the big 2024 coming.
I just wanted to say that that was amazing. I was like a big person who like lived in the past and lived in the future a lot, like what's going to happen. And just like learning from Sid that, you know, we have to stay in the now, and, you know, all behavior, good or bad, comes from our thinking. Like it was really eye opening. And it's kind of like the three principles like formed me as a person. I was so afraid of anxiety and panic attacks and everything. And then I just found Sid, and I was like, started to realize, you know, I'm a person. I'm not afraid to be angry anymore or sad or get caught up or have a noisy head. I think it's just like a beautiful thing to be a part of this community.
Beautifully stated. It's like being human, I don't need to make that a problem, you know, so is everybody else. You know, so is everybody else. It took me a while to see that I wasn't a problem to be solved, you know, by my own thinking from moment to moment, that I was a problem that needed to be solved.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I have a question. I'm curious to see how other people respond to this. But there's a person that I work with, that I have worked with, and that she's into, I can learn from the past. I don't want to forget the past. I can learn from it. But I'm just wondering how other people deal with that. You know, the past, I can't forget the past. This is useful. I can learn from it. Or through grieving, a dear friend has passed away and she's going through this grieving. And so anybody's got some insight in that, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what people have to say on that.
Thank you. That was actually a really good statement. If you want to know what's in your future, look what's in your mind. I discovered the principles about 3 years ago. And it's changed my life completely. I was raised with a man who pretty much that's all he did with his life, was ruminate about the past and look into the future. So that's a really ingrained habit for me to stay out of. I don't really care for that expression that everything happens for a reason, because it sends me into, why do children die? Why does, you know, all the bad things, war and whatnot happen? But I think we can learn from it. I like the expression, it comes from Sid, we're all only one thought or one decision away from changing our entire lives. And the whole living in separate realities idea has just changed my world. I recently went through a really bad deal with selling my house. Just the dynamics of dealing with dishonest people and how it all shook out. And I was standing in my favorite spot that I go to in Idaho when I've got things to figure out a couple of months ago, just after it happened. And I thought, you need to go to your place. You just need to go be in the mountains. My parents are scattered there. And I was standing admiring the mountains. And all of a sudden it came to me, you don't own a house anymore. You don't have any ties. Your world is completely open. You can go and do whatever you want to do. I've been trying to leave where I currently live for a number of years, and it's a dynamic when you own a house. How do you sell it, buy another one, yet, you know, all those things. I was taught that if you think about the future and you prepare enough, then you can avoid disaster. Well, I'm pretty sure that Israel and Ukraine aren't very fond of that right now, because they just woke up one day and their worlds have changed. We're all open to that. Our world is politically very messy right now. But I love the idea. It gave me a lot of peace. Our world, we're all one thought, one decision away from changing our entire world, but that doesn't mean it has to be our thought. We live in different realities, and it was someone else's reality, someone else's idea of how all that was supposed to go down that changed my world. And that in and of itself gave me the ability to let go of that ruminating. What did I do wrong? Why didn't I see this happening? I did see it happening. Why didn't I act sooner? So it took away that self-blame and that self-condemnation, because it was not my decision. All I did was decide to sell my house. The other decisions were not mine. And so the principles still help me through that, because I don't have to let that rock my world. It's not mine. I can let go. And that tied in perfectly with what's in your mind is what's in your future. Because now I get to look at, it's scary, I'm not going to deny that, but I have opportunity and I have complete free reign. And this can turn out however I want it to. There's not very many people in this world have that much freedom in their life. And so I'm excited now and I'm embracing it and I'm making plans to move forward. And I have no clue what that looks like today, but I will figure it out.
Yeah.
So thank you for this, for sharing that reading. It was perfect timing.
That's beautiful. And then I think one of the greatest things that from Sid also, that we all have the potential for a fresh thought, new thinking, you know, we don't have to come up with it. That everyone has a potential. So I just love that even if I'm completely mired down by whatever it is, there I can hold true that I have the potential to have a fresh thought on this that seems to have me so gripped and bound inside my own thinking, you know. It's like, of course it never shows up fast enough, but you know what I mean? It's like it kind of gives me a life rope to hang on to, going, wait a minute, every human being possesses the potential for new thought, a fresh idea, you know? So it's, to me, it's kind of like a safety net of going, somewhere out there in the world, this looks different and I can have a fresh thought on anything. So it's, nothing is impossible from that place, you know, nothing is impossible.
Yeah.
No matter how convincing the campaign is, you know, nothing is impossible. Nothing. And that, to me, I love it. That's as solid as gravity, that we all have the potential for new thought. And we've all had, I'm sure we've all had that happen, where we saw something, gained a piece of understanding that we didn't even know we needed, or we were looking for it, but when it dropped in, it was like, thank you so much. You know, it kind of fills your beingness with a fresh quality, I'll even say. A very fresh quality. Congratulations on selling your house. Congratulations.
I was a big person about like trying to learn from my past. I've had a lot of trauma and it just wasn't good. And I remember I had to go and find it because I wrote it down. Sid said, in the moment, life is good. Life is only difficult if you think about the past and project it into your future. And I remember when I first heard that quote, it was on a rough day for me. And like, it took a couple days. I never really get insights when I listen to Sid. And I think that's why he says, don't listen to what I'm saying. But like hearing it like now and just like processing it a little, like I was not having like a good future because I was projecting all of that trauma and based thinking to the now. And I had a friend too that I coached for a little bit. She had her mom and brother pass probably 2 months apart from each other. And I remember she would call and I would just let her grieve, you know, and I would just tell her she's human and you don't need to feel okay about this now or a week from now, and you can take as long as you need, you know. And that kind of helped her, and she just started processing all the good memories eventually, which I thought was great. I just gave her like a little bit of time. And I feel like learning from Sid, like you just need some time. you can't change immediately. You can't change your thinking. Like when you have an insight, you can feel grateful for it. And I've learned to not rush things, you know.
I love that.
Hopefully
I
that
love
helps.
that. Not rush
Thank
things.
you.
That's a lesson.
I was always impatient. Like, when am I going to be anxiety free? But I'm not anxiety free. And I do like a little bit of coaching now. I'm still an apprentice and I want to be a practitioner. And I try to teach people that, like, what I believe you're just never going to be free from it, but you're going to manage it and have like a different, like, I have a friendship with my anxiety now. And I realize I'm only human and I have like so many insights about all my symptoms being just like love letters to me to take a step back. It's like you become more grateful for it.
What came to mind for me about your friend was, I mean, it took me a while to get here, but I really see it now, is I really care about how I feel in my life, my moment to moment, day to day life. I really care about how I feel. Not like I'm trying to manage things, but at the gateway of like, if I think about that, my state of being suffers, you know? And so I think about who hasn't had a past? If you've lived longer than a minute, who hasn't had a past and it's full of unwelcomed events? You know, if you're one of the lucky ones, I'm happy for you. But for the rest of the population, they had all kinds of things that were never invited, horrific. You never thought, why me? How did this come in? All of that stuff. It's like I value my experience of life, and I just know that going into the past or thinking deeply into those things, the feedback is just how I feel. It's like I don't want to spend my currency on that because I don't want my state of well-being to suffer. So I really see how valuable it is to not go into the past or even I really love the idea of just relying on insight. Going, if there's something new I need to understand about that, it will find me. But me rearranging my memories around that has never brought me anything but a low mood. You know, perfect return on investment, low mood. I was like, no, I'm not. That's junk stock to me. I'm not investing. I don't want any part of that. No return on investment except a low mood.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think too, like with working with clients, a lot of times it's like we kind of have one of those kind of smackdown conversations as nicely as possible. And it's like, when you're going to give up the story? It's taken a lot of your bandwidth, you know what I mean? Until you make room for, you know, if you're really gripping that story.
And the story about the story is that there's something to be learned from the story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's something I haven't seen about whatever my question. There's something, if I keep looking into it. And you could, who knows, you know, we could spend lifetimes and lifetimes doing that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to feel bad. Not self-inflicted. I don't want to give myself those feelings. I don't want them. If I can catch them, you know what I mean? If there's anything on my side of the line, I want to clean it up because there's plenty of unexpected unknown that my mind will react to for sure.
I've been into when I first learned about the principles, and I'd hear Sid say, you know, look for the feeling. And
Yes.
I was thinking that's look for the nice feeling. And now the way I'm looking at it now is just look for the feeling.
That if the feeling never lies, you know what I mean? The feeling never lies. It really, to me, it tells you if you're what direction you're going.
Right.
Just as information, what direction?
How am I using my thinking? It's not a thing, good or bad thing. It's just like when the signal light is red or green, it's not a good or bad thing. It's just telling you to stop or to go.
Exactly. Exactly. And for me, the red light, I just always am grateful when the red light comes on when I'm somewhere other than right here, right now, whether it's next week or whether it was 30 years ago. I'm always grateful when the red light comes on. It's like, not helpful. Not helpful.
For me, it's interesting to approach not helpful as it's okay, it's not a bad thing, it's just not helpful.
Exactly. It's not good or bad. And everybody has their own needle of not helpful. Beep, beep, wherever it is. I think too in that about looking into the past and having the opportunity to wake up that you're painting the future. Your thoughts are painting the future. I hear that a lot with people that are, that people are looking for a partnership. Well, everybody's married or gay, married or gay, married or gay. It's like, well, okay, great. They're not, but your mind is just now gonna see nothing, kind of like shopping for that green car, you're gonna see the green car you sent your mind out to locate. Same thing. We just don't see it as a contaminant. How our thinking can contaminate a completely clear white screen of potential as a whiteboard kind of. It's completely clean. It stays clean the less we bring our assumptions about how life works, into the how it looks like life works, or the only way life works, let's put it that way.
For me, it's just like when I go back to before the principles, when I would allow the diagnosis, whatever they gave me, and then focus on the past and always look through the lenses of the past, I find myself not just paralyzed, not being able to move forward, but also always having excuses. So it's almost like I would use, especially the bad experiences, whenever there's something that I want to shy away from in life. Oh, it's because this happened to me. That's why I can't do these type of things. So, and that's not really helpful. So now with the 3 principles and the understanding, it's like I have a completely different approach on life. It's when I have these feelings and that I might not want to do certain things or I'm scared, I don't allow it anymore because I understand its thought, and I would just, not in a loving way, I would try to push through if it makes sense, because I understand this is just thought and not everything will always be this way. So you have to take responsibility for your past to be able to move completely forward and be free from it. And yeah, so that's the biggest difference. So I don't think necessarily, maybe you can learn from your past, don't get me wrong, but for me personally, especially bad things from the past, if I dwell on them and focus on them, they're more paralyzing and helping me to make excuses for every single thing. Whereas now that I don't do it, I have hope for the future and a completely different outlook, which I didn't have before. Yeah, and also one thing I learned is, I said that before, I think, we spoke about when I spoke about my son. So I think now that I don't do it, it really affects the next generation for me, because especially, I don't know if when you hear about generational curses. For me in my family, my mother was a certain way, her mother was a certain way. When I was dwelling on it, automatically I would believe I would be exactly like that. But that now that I choose not to do that, I mean, my mother's completely overwhelmed that I still have my children and that I am a good mother in her eyes. And I'm trying my best, obviously, but it's just like when you have this understanding, you're so free from certain things, and there's like the bondage is broken. I don't know if that makes any sense. So yeah.
That's beautiful, and I love that the bondage is broken. Think how much thinking fell away and continues to fall away from you from that. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Wow. I see, look at that precious one, and it's like, oh my gosh, who would want to carry forward a generational curse? You know what I mean? And that's all it is thought being carried forward, carried forward, carried forward. It's like, oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, something that occurs to me from time to time, and where our thoughts come into, how do I even put this? Recognizing fear versus our gut feeling that may be preventing us from walking into a situation. And I find that hesitancy sometimes bites me. It just did it on the weekend. I was booking flights for a trip I'm doing in February, and they're difficult flights. And I had the perfect flight lined up on Saturday night. And I thought, okay, it's right there. What is that nagging in your stomach that's making you wait? Like, this is perfect. You've got 3 hours in one airport, 3 hours on the way back. You've got first class the whole way. It's a long flight. It's going to Costa Rica. And I thought, okay, it's going to be there in the morning. Just hang on to it. You're not at ease right now. So just walk away. Phone call came in, took that phone call, got up the next morning, went to book that flight. It was all locked in. All I had to do was hit send, and it was gone. And I'm like, son of a gun, you have done it to yourself again. You hesitated. Why did you do that? And I thought, because something didn't feel right last night. And I don't know whether it was fear or if it was my gut telling me something was wrong. So I ended up with the same stupid flight that I had last time. I get to spend 8 hours in the Dallas airport on the way back, you know, which is horrible. And then after I book it, my friend is saying, well, here, no, now we need to do this. Get out of Dallas, stay in a hotel overnight, blah, blah. And I looked at it and went, wait. I can either wander around the airport for 8 hours. I've done it before. It's not comfortable. It's not ideal, but it's doable versus find your luggage in Dallas, haul it out, go to a hotel, stay there for the night. You're going to feel anxious because you know you're heading out in the morning. Get your stuff back to the airport. So technically, all you're going to do is occupy 4 hours with a lot of chaos, and you've still got 4 hours in an airport or a hotel room or whatever, and then you're not home for another day. So I left it. I actually had the common sense. Normally, my brain would say, okay, this is a better fix. My brain this time said, listen to what you're thinking and what you're feeling. This is a lot of chaos. If you just wander around, his idea is you'll be much more rested when you get home. My idea is I'm going to be finding that luggage, hauling it across an airport, going to a hotel. Am I going to sleep well? Then I have to haul it back. That's a lot of stuff. Or I can just take the time to relax, wander around the airport, people watch, read some stuff, do some exploring. It's a big airport. There's a lot of walking you can do. But it just sort of, yesterday, when I was finalizing everything, I thought, now what was that? Was there something wrong with that flight? Or where was my thinking and all of that? And of course I let it go, and I'm going to just stick with staying in the airport for 8 hours because that's too much chaos and I don't like chaos. The principles has increased my intolerance for chaos exponentially, which is a good thing.
That and drama and all that, yeah, that happens.
Yeah, it's just like, get over it. Yeah, so it's just interesting. I always struggle with that question. Is this my gut, or is this my thoughts creating feelings that are preventing me from walking into a bad situation?
Well, it sounds like you've launched your own inquiry.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know, yeah, you've launched your own inquiry, you know, and you didn't even have to pay for a workshop. You're in the middle of one right now. So
right.
Yeah. That's a great place to just see what happens, you know. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll know, maybe you won't know, but your point of reflection is going to serve you, you know, just having that moment of reflection and seeing the role, really trying to see the role of thought and what you're doing. just to see the role of thought and even that piece about, God, was that fear or intuition? What was it? Not that you need to get the answer, but to even be curious about what you made a choice from.
And interesting that a phone call interrupted the whole process as I was about to hit submit. I didn't have to answer that phone call.
Oh, no, that's
In fact, they said, do you want to just go finish your flight and then we can talk in a few minutes? And no, it'll be there in the morning. No, it wasn't.
you had me at first class. I wouldn't have picked up that phone. You had me at first class. I'm like, no.
Right?
Anybody else have any other reflections on our quote today before we wrap it up?
I have another example, I guess. I have an individual in my life, my sister, and I know that I've struggled and she's struggled, and being introduced to the 3 principles was such a life changer for me, and so I've come to realize that I can't really say anything to her. Like, it's like she has to get curious enough about what's happened to me that she would ask. And so I'm just leaving it at that. And it just really makes it easy. I'm not trying to sell her on a bigger, better idea, even though I clearly see that she's struggling and, quite unhappy, but that's her journey. So it's made it easier for me just to be as kind as I can and be as present as I can with her and just kind of hold the candle for her, so to speak, that she'll discover something for herself.
And see them as whole. I love the idea. It took me a long time to see everyone in my family as whole. Nobody's broken. Nobody needs my fixing. Nobody needs my opinion. Unless if they ask, it's great, but they're all whole and complete human beings with the same. This is what the metaphor that came to me was the same 3-pronged plug that I have into higher intelligence. They've got the same plug as I do, and how I don't want to think less of them than they're whole with the capacity. And I feel like if I hold them in that space, I feel better. I don't feel like I need to run the bases for anybody on anything. And a fresh way of loving, it kind of gives me an opportunity to redefine loving and love in a fresh way. Because that previous way was sticky. Had judgment on it or something. Didn't want the judgment was aching me out. I'm sure they could feel it, even not in words, but I didn't want the feeling inside me holding judgment. Thank you very much for listening. There are abundant resources to learn more through the 3PGC website. You can also learn more by visiting my YouTube channel or my podcast, Connected Living, Truths and Understandings for the Business of Life.